Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 88, and today we're back with a skill analysis. Our skill analysis segment is where we take a skill or special equipment and the like, and we kind of break it down and talk about how it works, uh, what sorts of uses you can get out of it, and hopefully provide some special tidbits of information that maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe wasn't a way that you thought you could utilize that ability. And today we're talking about a close combat skill, Berserk. Something that a little bit of everyone has access to, regardless of faction that you play. Now, sectorals will differ, but regardless of faction, everyone has at least something that can Berserk, largely speaking. And so we thought we'd take a little bit of time for this episode to go over that special skill. But before we get started, we wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of Metachemistry, Mo Games. Mythic's Online Emporium is an online supplier for Infinity that you can find at mo-games.com. And as part of their sponsorship, anyone who is a patron of our channel gets a 10% discount code to that storefront. And in addition, whether you're a patron or not, as long as you're part of our Discord server, which is free, we raffle off a $40 coupon code each month that you can spend there at Mo Games. So just make sure to join our Discord server and you're entered for that. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And tonight for our Berserk discussion, we have Ian, Trevor, and myself. And let's talk a little bit about how the last week or so has been for you gents. What is your gaming endeavors and the like been looking like over since the last time we talked? Trevor.
I've been kind of shifting towards some big tournament prep. So we got Salt Lake Showdown coming up in June. So I'm starting to kind of, I guess, look at missions, look at armies, kind of think about list building and try to finalize some stuff in probably the next month or two. So that's what I've been up to lately.
Exciting. Yeah, and I know you've been playing a lot of Torchlight lately. Is that still generally the plan, or is that going to vary?
I think that's the plan right now. There's Biotech 4, so it's really hard not to run the BTS 6 army for that.
Right.
Pretty easy
Do a
planning.
lot on that. Yeah. And like multiple BTS 9 units, which is not super common.
Yeah, makes that list building for that mission basically any list can work. So I guess that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, ideally you don't want to be in the zone, but if you do have to be in the zone, having BTS 6 plus sure helps.
Not the end of the world, yeah.
Right. And multi-wound.
Oh yeah, true.
But yeah, how about you, Ian?
Not a damn thing. Life's been crazy for the last week or so. Work stuff. My sister got engaged. Just general life stuff of things all over the place, and there's left no time to be able to do any gaming, unfortunately.
Well, both congratulations, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's actually been pretty recent since our last recording. And so I've got another game in, mostly just playing around with OSS some more. I'm still contemplating what I'm going to stick with for a while now that we're, the better part of halfway through this season, something like that. But I'm sure I'll find something eventually. But yeah, as far as tonight goes, the main thing we're going to talk about is Berserk. And Berserk is a special skill that's kind of surprisingly scattered all over the place. Like, it's one of those things where you can look at a profile and kind of forget that it's there in a lot of instances. But for those who aren't familiar, Berserk is an entire order special skill, so you have to declare it from wherever you are activating a model from. And if they have line of fire to the target, then they can essentially do a move with their full movement, first and second values, and CC attack against the target. And it's a normal roll with anything else going on. So it can't be opposed. But also, you're not opposing anything when you declare a Berserk. Now, it's notable that if you can't reach, like if you don't end up being within range to Berserk, then you end up idling and taking whatever is coming your direction. And if you have a Berserk bonus, which you'll find on a handful of models with Berserk, that will add to your CC skill, in addition to other modifiers you might have from, say, martial arts or CC attack, plus or minus X, etc. Or plus. Minus won't actually help you.
Yeah, only in a
face-to-face.
face-to-face.
Yeah.
And the negative for martial arts will only apply in a face-to-face as well.
Yep. But you can Berserk while you're in CC already, which is a change from previous rules. And you can
But only
also
if
declare-
you're the active player.
If you're active, yes. Berserk is not a skill you can use in ARO under any circumstances. And it is something you can declare as your impetuous activation. So if you're impetuous, that is a legal declaration there as well. So now that we kind of have the basics out of the way for Berserk, what are some of the units that immediately come to mind for you when you hear about the Berserk skill? I'm sure there's some pretty infamous models, I think.
Bears!
It's true.
Always bears!
Always bears. For me, being an Aleph player, it's Ajax is one of the ones I primarily think of. But I also always think of bears, even though I don't play Ariadne.
Because you have been on the receiving end of many bears.
It could be a lot more, but I'm fine with it not being very many. What about you, Trevor? What are your infamous Berserk models?
I think it's more playing against a bunch of JSA players and Damaru Berserking.
Mhm.
That hurts. Doesn't feel good. You know it's going to happen.
Yeah, they crit on, what, a 13 plus, I think?
Yeah, it's something insane. I think they're CC 24.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Neko.
Neko, yeah.
Ugh.
Neko will do it too. Character Damaru.
Because he's like 25 and then everything.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Damaru
It's
even
their
better than
Berserk
that.
+3 and then martial arts level 3 and they're CC 24.
So they're 30, so they crit on a 10 plus.
Yeah.
With mostly EM close combat weapons. There's an AP option, but mostly EM.
Yeah.
So yeah. And yeah, I mean, you'll find like Ajax is in a similar boat there, where actually I think he's exactly the same because he has martial arts level 3, Berserk +3, CC 24. He hits with explosive, which sometimes better, sometimes worse.
Mm-hmm.
EM's probably better more often. But yeah, they are real likely to crit you, and they will of course always hit you no matter what, which is rather terrifying. Yeah, I feel like Berserk tends to be really powerful either on really cheap models, things like Galvegans, or really durable models like Ajax or Dumaro or other heavy infantry, things like that. I feel like that's where bears.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you get a lot of that value, either knowing that the model is a throwaway unit already because you're 6 points, or it's a model you aren't really worried about dying in the exchange anyway when you're, decent armor and multiple wounds and the like.
No, or if you're a Varangian, because they're kind of in that middle ground where they're armor 2 and dogged, but still relatively cheap.
True. Yeah. Yep. Varangian are a pretty common one. More and more so, I feel like, nowadays, actually. Because they're in a handful of factions, and O12 always wants them when it can bring them, because it's the only unit that fills that role for them.
Yeah.
Both in Starmada and Vanilla.
Yeah, and a good source of smoke for that army too.
Exactly. But yeah, so would you say that either of you are rather common users of the Berserk skill? And if so, what sorts of things do you look for, or what sorts of models with Berserk do you like to use?
Oh yeah, I use it like all the time, especially if I'm playing various flavors of Ariadna. And high durability or cheap and plentiful. So,
Totally.
so like I said, the Galwegians, the Varangian Guard, especially because the Cosmo versions, the Varangian Guards are like the cheap ones at like 9 points. So they're pretty solid. Bears are very durable, although still relatively inexpensive. Then there's Wallace, so there's actually like quite a lot of options in Ariadna for it, and especially in Cosmo, because it kind of combines most of the berserking models together. And yeah, I like to take multiples of them because not only are they cheap, but that just gives me more opportunities to use it between most of those models having smoke and being able to move up under that kind of cover. And then, yeah, just getting to do the thing right there.
Yep. Yeah, Cosmo can practically make an entire army list out of Berserk models.
Yes,
There's
they
so
can.
many.
I have done this.
Yep. What about you, Trevor? Do you find Berserk making its way into your lists very often?
I think it makes its way into lists by accident. I usually forget
Sure.
that I have a model that has Berserk, and then someone
Yep.
will sometimes after the game be like, "Why didn't you Berserk my guy with that unit like a Galwegian or like a Nahab?" And you're like, "Oh, totally forgot they had Berserk." So it's one of those skills that I always forget what units have it, and I don't think about it that often, which I know is probably negative for my games when it does come in handy. So
Fair. Yeah, I find that it is largely incidental for me as well, because I'll typically play factions that either some of them don't have it. Like if I'm playing OSS, there are no Berserk units in OSS, or will be limited kind of incidental users of Berserk. So, like I was playing Starmada for a bit, and they have the Varangians, of course, and Hippolyta. Wait, no, they do not have Hippolyta. Vanilla has Hippolyta, and Torchlight does, but not Starmada. Or the relatively new Zellenkriegers in Tunguska, which I have them and don't tend to berserk them very much. Because I like having them around to throw smoke, because that's hard to come by for that. It's impossible to come by at that points cost for Tunguska, but it's hard to come by in general because they just have the just Perseus and Zonautica. So having something below 20 some odd points, it's nice. So yeah, so I don't find myself declaring it very often, and I don't typically have very much access to it. In factions that I more commonly play anyway. But yeah, so why don't we kind of rotate around to utilizing the skill a little bit? We know what it does, how it works, but how do you find yourself using it, or what are circumstances you feel like it's a valuable addition to use? So Ian, why don't you start?
So I find my primary use for it is as a guided missile, where I need to take something out and I'm willing to sacrifice a piece to do it, especially if that's a cheaper piece. And it does take a little bit of skill to set up because it's an entire order, so you already have to be in range. You already have to be in line of fire to be able to use it. So how do you get there without being killed? So that's kind of the big thing where it's most usable on high fizz models that can dodge from behind total cover to get into line of fire and range, and then declare it on the next activation.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, you'll come around a corner and you'll attempt to fire off a template or some other attack and your opponent's dodging or just otherwise bounces in the face-to-face or what have you. And then you happen to be standing there, and they're standing there, and then it's time to berserk. But yeah, so Trevor, I know you said that it's a little bit more incidental for you. What circumstances do you find if when you do use berserk? What are circumstances that make you think, okay, now is the time to use this kind of all or nothing sort of skill?
Yeah, it's usually out of desperation at that point. Like you were saying, like when you need that something just to be deleted, and you need that guided missile kind of attack a target that's maybe giving you a hard time. That's usually when I remember or start to use the skill, when it's like, okay, if I don't get rid of this attack piece or this person who infiltrated on my side of the board, like it's one of those do or die moments where it's like, okay, I gotta get rid of this piece, and I'm willing to throw away my berserk model, or maybe just tie it up if it survives, so that way I can move freely, do the mission, stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's usually if I'm not the more common experiences for me are if I'm not worried about my active piece and whatever reprisal is coming towards them. So for me, the most common berserk unit that I've used is Ajax. And if I feel pretty confident that you're not going to make it through pseudo 3 wounds, armor 5, there's a good chance I'll berserk you. Like, then, if I've taken a little bit of damage, all right. Maybe we'll try and face-to-face this afterwards. But, yeah, he has definitely put a fair number of tags in the can cruncher.
He's real good at that.
One of his favorite things to do. So yeah, so setting it up is important, and I think that those are generally the two ways that you're going to see it. Sorry, got a lot of feedback for a second. So generally, there's two main ways to set that up that we've kind of mentioned already. But one is if you get a chance to, dodge as your second skill, and it brings you into line of fire when you weren't in line of fire before, because the movement is at the resolution of the order, it's already past the time to declare AROs, and so you get sort of a free move out into line of fire, assuming you pass your roll. And that's kind of the safest way. And most models with Berserk tend to have pretty decent or better fizz, so it's not hard for them to do. And a lot of them have extra dodge distance, which makes it even easier. And then the other way is just kind of incidentally, like you're already pressing your attack, you're charging towards the enemy, you're throwing whatever you have at them, your light shotguns, your smoke grenades, or whatever the case may be. And there's a stalemate, or you take a hit but didn't go down, or what have you, and now you're there, now you're in range, and you can declare that skill. And I suppose a third way is if you've already made it into close combat, then you can safely semi-safely, just hammer away, just eating those hits back. For those models that are not a threat to you in the first place, usually. Or that it's just so valuable for you to kill them even if you lose that trooper that it's more than worth it. So I think one of the more common ones there is probably if you find something that is generally better in CC than you. Like you have your Galwegan going into, say, Shinobu or something. It's like, you're probably not going to beat Shinobu. But Berserk, and it doesn't matter if you get cut in half, because Shinobu's probably not making it out either. So one other thing that I think is pretty interesting in terms of utilizing Berserk is with movement skills, because you get to do a full move and then your CC attack. So you're moving with your first and second move values. And the obvious one that comes to mind again is the bear pode. And Ian, what makes the bear pode so good for this?
Well, a 10-inch climbing plus run up a wall and then a smack with a hammer. Pretty good.
Yep, I can see you from where I'm at. And so I charge 10 inches, go up the wall, over the parapet, into base contact with you from down the street. And now there's a hammer coming down on you.
Yeah, I actually still remember it's right when like N4 dropped and Cosmo was still like super new, and I played against Shane's JSA, and it was one of his first games of N4, and the look on his face when the Ryukin 9 just ate it from a bear pod because he hadn't faced him yet.
Mhm.
Just like right up the wall into bait. He's just like, oh.
Yeah, it's a surprising amount of movement, especially with how Climbing Plus works, and you measure from, or you can measure from the top of the silhouette.
Yeah.
And so being S5, that's what, like 50-ish
Oh, no. They're
millimeters up.
S6.
Oh, they're S6, so even taller. Yeah. Yeah, so you've got quite a bit already.
Yeah. And not having to count the parapet anymore either.
Yep. Yeah, so you start measuring at 55 millimeters up for that for the climbing portion of it. Unfortunately, you can't use super jump with this skill.
Yeah.
Now, the only one I can think of off the top of my head that has both super jump and berserk is Hippolyta, but she cannot pull off that trick because you can short skill jump, but it does not count as the move skill. Climbing Plus wins again. So yeah, I think that, those are generally the situations where you're going to see Berserk used. One thing that I think is kind of interesting before we kind of move back to the other direction in combating Berserk is that Berserk is a skill you can declare while in a fire team. So the leader, of course, needs to know, well, I suppose the leader doesn't need to know Berserk or have the Berserk skill, but all the troopers that do have the Berserk skill will do their move, and then anyone who's in base contact will apply or supply the attacker with the extra burst as the usual close combat with multiple models rule. So that's kind of a fun way you can move some things forward. Again, this feels like a bread and butter move for like Cosmo or Caledonia and the like. Oh, here's a way to move a bunch of my models and go chop that stubborn piece down. But yeah, do you guys find yourself now? I've never found the need to because I don't have enough models with Berserk. But have you guys found instances where you've declared a fire team Berserks, either with all of them having Berserk or just a few?
Yes. And it's ridiculous. So primarily where you're going to find that is going to be in Cosmo and in Caledonia, because with Wallace, then either linking with Galwegians or Varangians.
Yep, definitely.
Your core teams.
I don't know how much it helps them,
No,
but it does.
it's
At least a little.
it's not that it helps. It's not that even it's necessarily effective. It's highly entertaining.
There you go. What about you, Trevor?
I've only had it been once, and it was a very rare setup where my opponent tried to, I think it was with Shinobu or Noniwaban, kill my Dr. Gulam, which was in a link team with an Asawira. And it was his last order of the turn. He just wanted to get rid of that doctor so no one can be pulled up later. I passed my save, didn't die. And then that was the one time I was like, oh, Asawira has Berserk, and just charge right in to Noniwaban. Maybe a little reckless with the choice against an Noniwaban, but it was a lot of fun. And Asawira didn't die. My opponent was having a bad dice game, so.
Yeah. I was gonna say that sounds like a reasonably dead Asawira, but didn't happen that time.
Yep.
Highly entertaining, like Ian said. Not smart.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more fun to be entertaining.
I play the game.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, obviously, Berserk can be a very dangerous skill, and the main danger is that you can't oppose the skill. You can't. It breaks the normal face-to-face action of Infinity, and I think that that's very interesting for specific cases like this. But I'm glad that it's not a regular occurrence in the game. So I feel like face-to-face rolls are kind of the heart and soul of Infinity. But what do you do against someone where you're finding these berserk units and they're charging towards you? How do you stop them? How do you calm them down?
Well, honestly, the it's hard to pull off effectively, but probably the best way that I found is through the use of deployable weapons. Because if you can kind of lay out a minefield and of various types of deployable weapons or whatever, and kind of block off the routes of advance for the berserk units, and maybe prevent them from moving up, or potentially take them out before they get into range to trigger the berserk. That's one of the few things that I've found that actually tends to slow them down a little bit, because that Varangian with Dogged don't get Dogged against a shock mine.
True.
Now you're right, he's dodging on a pretty decent fizz on that. He's a 14. He'll be on an 11 against that,
Yeah,
but
it's not bad.
not bad.
Great.
But honestly, it slows him down, makes him waste orders, trying to dodge through and get through things. So it's definitely got some utility to utilizing deployable weapons to try to slow things down.
Absolutely. What about you, Trevor? Any things that you've seen or used to help mitigate berserk models charging at you?
My best way is to try to, I guess, discourage the person from performing the berserk. So that's having multiple arrow options if they're going to try to berserk. So, kind of admitting that they're going to take out a piece, but maybe not let them have a second opportunity to berserk or third. And making sure maybe a shot or two goes into them as they're berserking to basically slow them down. I don't want to have multiple units die to berserk. I'd rather just have one. So,
Absolutely.
So yeah, admitting defeat a little bit maybe on the first berserk, but
Fair.
Yeah, unless it's a bear, because then it's 2 wounds, armor 5, and Dogged. So it's gonna probably get 2 or 3 berserks.
It's okay. You just viral pistol it on the way in. Everything will be fine. I promise.
Okay, yeah, play Tahar Hawk. We're good.
We're Drews.
Yeah, we're Drews.
But yeah, bears are a tough one for that reason, and which kind of mitigate. I'll have two, but they definitely mitigate one of them, which is spreading out. If you can't get a path, either line of sight or someone's on a building or something like that, then you can prevent some berserk that way by keeping your safe units in advantageous deployments. Though that is much more difficult with bear pods for the reasons we've already discussed. The other thing that you can do is not be seen in the first place. If you're in a marker state, you cannot be berserked. And so that can potentially help you as well. So if you have key units that you're going to press the advantage with that are in camouflage or similar states, impersonation maybe, then you can go that route and know that you're safe from berserk for the time being.
Or go hidden deployment, because then you can't be berserked, and outside of sensor can't be discovered either.
There you go.
Super safe.
The only way to win is not to play. That's how you beat bear pods. You don't put stuff on the table.
I mean, it's kind of a valid tactic at some point.
That's true.
Let them move up and then drop all your airborne deployment in the back line and take the objectives while they're on the other side of the board.
There we go. So I agree. I think that all of those are ways that you can help mitigate the presence of berserk. Now, obviously, there's long-range arrows and the like, because if you can just shoot things before they get close enough to berserk, then that's perfectly valid, though that's often easier said than done.
Especially with bears.
Right. You'll see other things that are just going to gun down those ARO pieces or otherwise make it really difficult for you to get there. Things like
Total
you know,
immunity.
total immunity does make it a lot harder. If you're multi-burst, it helps.
Yeah.
But it's still not good. But, enough high damage shots will do it too.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have BTS targeting attacks. But it'd be real nice for those Lasiques. Get those viral sniper rounds on them.
Hey, breaker rifles do the job too.
It's true. MSV is often your friend with these sorts of things because if you
Yeah.
can fight against the smoke, because many, I would say, without looking, probably the majority of Berserk models have smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And MSV will help you with that because then at least you won't. That's one fewer option that they'll be able to face you with. And if they're dodging instead of able to throw smoke to try and get a face to face that way, then that's a 3-pip swing in your direction for that face to face, which helps and makes it so your other troopers are able to keep watch on them if they decide not to throw smoke. If they do, then you're just getting free shots. So at this point, I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about some of our favorite Berserk units. Things that, we've kind of talked about some of the big ones. But what are some of your favorite units that happen to have Berserk and that, you like to use, but maybe don't get to play all that often, or maybe you do play them really regularly and you enjoy using them all the time? And Ian, you wanna start? Do you have something that jumps out at you, something extra fun?
Yeah. So there's actually like quite a number of Berserk models in the game. Going through the list, like Devin said, every faction has at least something that can Berserk. And like one of the ones that it's just they're so annoying and they're so cheap is the tiger creatures.
Yep.
And they're just, you can take so many of them. Their AVA is super high, and so you can just like kind of flood the board with these cheap little monsters, size 1 monsters that if anybody gets close. And honestly, I think that a lot of the time the best way to even use the taiga isn't actually to berserk with them or even necessarily activate them or move them, but to place them in spots that will make it hard for your opponent to advance, and them knowing that if they get within a certain range that they're opening themselves up to being berserked in the following turn. And that can make things pretty difficult for objectives to be advanced upon if you just can't dig the thing out without coming into basically its range. So those are pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because they dodge so well that sometimes, kind of like Liberto, where sometimes you just won't quite win those face-to-face rolls, and they'll stick around a lot longer than you would think a sub-10 point model should. It's bad news.
Yeah. Stupid tigers.
Stupid tigers.
So
What about you, Trevor? What's one of your top 3 favorite Berserk models?
my favorite is got to be the Nahab. It's kind of a weird one. It's got Berserk plus
It is.
3. I like the SMG for the Berserk if I'm going to Berserk something, because it's a killer hacker. So it has Frenzy, but if you can cyber mask it before it gets Frenzy, and then try to go after something, and kind of you can dodge some arrows, you can kind of walk around, and hopefully no one discovers you. But they're multi wounds. They get no wound in cap, but they're also crit immune. So if you do a crit on the Berserk roll, you don't actually have to take that extra crit roll, which is really kind of something interesting. And it's a viral CC weapon, so some things might not like it, other things, don't really care, but there's a decharge option as well on a boarded shotgun version. So there's a lot of like weird, interesting, CC weapon options on the Nahab, and I really enjoy them. They've done a lot of work for me when it comes to Berserk. So
Yeah, Nahab are great. They're an interesting toolbox. Like they're expensive enough that they're not really throwaway units, but they have a really cool set of skills. Like they can really skew close combat face-to-face rolls in their favor quite a bit with martial arts level 2 and natural born warrior. That goes a long way. Being crit immune is normally it's just kind of a fun haha when it happens. But in close combat, that's a lot more relevant when kind of your goal is because you have low burst, you're trying to win on a crit. But not so with the Nahab. For me, it's probably the favorite because it's the one I've used the most, but it has to be Ajax. Ajax is probably a semi-common one, I suppose, but the big man with the big hammer is pretty great. He shares some of the qualities of the Nahab in that regard, where he also has martial arts. In his case, he's martial arts level 3. He's also got natural born warrior. He's got Berserk +3. He's got higher CC at 24. And so, kind of like the Damara we talked about at the beginning, he can potentially get to pretty absurd crit thresholds where, he charges forward 8 inches, puts down his damage 18 explosive close combat weapon, critting on a 10+. That's enough to make a lot of things real flat.
Yeah.
But then he's also got the durability to kind of back it up with 2 wounds and no wound incapacitation. And he has mimetism -3, which can help him out when he's getting there. Typically, you're going to see him in Steel Phalanx, where he can be part of a fire team. So he can potentially have cover as he's getting that direction and have the cover of smoke or eclipse with his Myrmidon friends. But yeah, and he shoots pretty well to kind of help deliver him as well. The extra damage and extra burst, in a fire team, that's essentially a sawed-off Spitfire with burst 5, damage 14. But yeah, I'd say that Ajax is definitely one of my favorite for berserking for that reason, because I like my big beefy models to do big beefy things.
he's so scary. I don't want to see him running up on you.
Yeah, he's not somebody you really want charging at your face, but he's gonna do it. All right, what about you, Ian? What's the next one on your top 3?
This one's kind of a weird one because it's from a faction I don't really play a lot, but I think the model's super cool, and it's just kind of weird and different. But the Kielsan, the covert assault unit for the Tohan Spiral Corps, it's a super cool model, but it's up there with like a mini. It's like a mini Ajax. Like it doesn't do as high a damage, and it doesn't get as up anywhere close as far as the number it needs to crit on, but it has 2 wounds, and then it has the inactive symbiote, so it has 3 wounds effectively. Mm-hmm. And then natural born warrior, if you're not, utilizing, well, it doesn't matter if you're berserking, but if you're not berserking, it can come in handy having natural born warrior. Martial arts
get a bonus.
Yeah.
So that's something at least. They're a little less likely to crit you at least.
Yep. Martial arts level 2, so he's critting on a 24 basically. Fizz is 14, goes up to 15 for the damage there with a DA weapon. Yeah, he's pretty cool, but also he has metachemistry, so like you might get something kind of cool to spruce this up a little bit. It's just an interesting profile. It's a little different, although it's a covert assault unit, and it's always bugged me that it didn't have like some level of like camouflage or infiltration, or I mean, I guess it has stealth, but
Right. But it's a
It just
size
doesn't
5
feel-
heavy infantry.
The size 5 heavy infantry with Berserk doesn't feel very covert.
Right? Yeah, I feel that. With his giant swords and his Red Fury or Mark 12.
Yeah, but like
chugga
if
guns.
that meta chemistry, if you roll like the +3 fizz, now all of a sudden it is damage like 18.
Yep.
So there's a potential there. It could get climbing
Dogged immunity
plus.
total.
Yeah, climbing plus. Yeah, dogged immunity total. I mean, no wound in cap. Like there's actually several things that just turn this thing into like a 4 wound monster.
Right. I do like the metachemistry chart. It's it feels like there aren't any bad results. Like I feel like
No.
you can roll booty and plenty of times you're like, I don't think I'm going to use that at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like almost every time with metachemistry, it's like, sweet, that'll do something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the 8/4 move with climbing plus. Like here's my 12-inch Berserk charge up a building. Like
Right.
I said, the potential. I said it's so random, but the potentials that the Keel Sun can bring are wild.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Trevor. What's another one for you?
Yeah. Maybe one that's probably not brought a lot, or at least I don't see brought a lot. Is Caden First Strike Dawn, the Wolver character.
From Defiance? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what really kind of stands out for me is the fact that he has a T2 CC weapon and his CC attacks get AP. So Berserk +3 on CC 23 with that combo of ammo types is pretty much an easy way to delete something with heavy infantry or attack.
He's hitting on like a 29 too.
Oh yeah, because his martial arts level 2. Yeah.
Yep. Martial arts, Berserk +3, CC 23. Yeah. Critting on 11s.
Yeah, he's absolutely disgusting.
And 2 wounds. So, I mean, kind of rare for Ariane, I guess. But,
I mean, he is a Wolver.
Yeah. I mean, Wolvers are the weird kind of heavy infantry, but not heavy infantry.
Yeah,
so.
has the climbing plus. I mean, he's got the tools.
Yeah.
Plus 2 inches of dodge. I mean, that's even like for that setup on that Fizz 14. Like he's got it. He's got the tools. 32 points is a little rough, but
I've always bring him with Wolver teams, I guess, just because
that's fair.
He just seems to be the best at the CC. So, I just like
and he can frenzy, so you can just get an extra Berserk the next turn.
True.
It's just more Berserk.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like Caden's not a very popular pick, and I feel like part of that is that he doesn't bring a lot more than a regular Wolver. It's mostly that T2 close combat weapon, I think, is kind of the big draw for him. Because otherwise, I think they get AP shock on
AP
regular
shock.
Wolvers.
Yeah, and he also has martial arts level 2, and then the normal Wolvers have level 1. So he's getting that additional plus. So he's just a better CC Wolver.
Yeah.
But
normal Wolvers also get +1 damage on their CC attacks.
It's not bad either.
Yeah. It's nice. But yeah, I think Caden's interesting. But yeah, I don't really see him almost ever. But it's a neat model if you're into Wolfman.
All like 3 of them that are out with the Defiant sculpts and everything. Yeah.
Right. It's true.
Like I don't think Yazek has a bad sculpt.
No.
I'm not a huge fan of the one with the 2 knives in the Direfo box. I like both the Defiance ones.
Yeah, that one's
bleeding
probably my
ones.
least favorite, but honest, I think my favorite one is actually the Defiance one where he's wielding the claymore.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's this one.
So this one, it's another one for me is maybe sort of falls into the category of incidental Berserk, but it's pretty interesting because of the durability that we've talked about already being useful, and that's the Blue Wolf. The Berserk tag. Yeah, it's it's a tag, so it's relatively fast. It's got a very respectable CC of 23 with Berserk +3, and a double action close combat weapon hitting at damage 15. is pretty respectable. And, it's structure 3 to take the hits back on armor 6, which is pretty reasonable. And, if it needs to use other tools, it has an extra damage, AP Spitfire, Heavy Flamethrower, and Panzerfaust. And those are all also extra burst. So, you've got choices going into somebody, which is always nice. It can tangle in close quarters, and one of the general weaknesses of tags is tying them up in CC, but not so with the Blue Wolf. The Blue Wolf will just Wolverine claw you.
It's the best boy.
Yep. Yeah, unless you're just real tough yourself, or maybe are a monofilament wielder or something like that, the Blue Wolf is not gonna go quietly. Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting one. I don't know if any other tags have Berserk off the top of my head. I don't think there are any.
No, there are not.
Like, there are other CC tags.
Oh well, no.
with CC.
There's one.
Oh, Scarface.
Scarface.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we got there. Mr. Turner. It's not my last one. But yeah, I think the Blue Wolf was super cool. I feel it's a little bit hard to fit in White Banner these days because they're just flush with new options and lots of fun things to do. But, at 70, 71 points, it's a pretty respectable tag that can kind of play big boy tag duty.
Yeah.
More or less. It's got as much, or it's got good damage. It's got AP. It can fight up close. It can fight at medium, long distance. Yeah, pretty cool. So, Ian, back to you. What's the last one of your top 3 Berserk units?
Well, my number 1 Berserk unit in the entire game is the Bearpode. It is just the most. I am. It is just the most absolutely fun model with Berserk that you can run. At the same time, it is just the most absolutely disheartening thing to see put down on the table across from you.
I was going to say, I've never heard the first part of that sentence. Never.
It's because you don't run Ariadne, so that you're missing out. But anyway, like I said, it's like when you have the Bearpode,
life is good.
The best time.
It's good.
It is just like it does the things. It is the reason why Berserk became basically a relevant skill in this edition. Nothing else really does Berserk to the same level that the Bear does. Like Ajax, yes, like absolutely, Ajax is up there, but like just the combination of the climbing plus with the 10-inch move, with the armor 5 and the total immunity, and the DA close combat weapon, it's
perfectly
just
balanced.
Yeah, it's just brutal. So, like I say, it's my favorite Berserk unit. I love them. They're fantastic. God damn, I hate facing them though. They're just like, it's like that. Why do I have to deal with that? And so they're also the reason that I love breaker rifles, because most factions can take at least a few breaker rifles.
That's
usually
generous.
I mean, most factions I play can take breaker rifles.
There you go.
At least on
qualifiers involved.
A few, at least like 1 or 2 models in a faction generally will have access to a breaker rifle at some point.
Maybe.
I don't know what low tech factions you're playing, Mr. Aleph. But anyway, breaker rifles, they just get the job done on it. If you got to face one, I think that they are usually the easiest, most cost-effective option to deal with bears, is just have a breaker rifle, because the damage 13 ain't a big deal when they get armor 0 against it.
It does help significantly. I mean, you still need to land 2 to 3 shots.
Yeah.
To go and have them go through, but yeah, it definitely feels way better than having to deal with total immune arm 5. It's a sad, sad time. But yeah, Trevor, what have you got for your last of your top 3?
Well, I'm gonna bring the guy, or I'm gonna the guy who brings the heat, which is Mr. Mendoza himself.
Ooh, nice.
He is a scary, scary man. That mimetism -6, and CC attack continuous damage, I think, makes him absolutely terrifying, and he starts 8 inches up the board. So
With DA.
DA, yeah. So I just feel like once he, gets line of fire on someone, and they're basically dead, in my opinion. Like every time I've seen him played, he just absolutely murders things, and I don't see him often because that 55-point heavy shotgun or the 57-point multi rifle. But
Yeah, but man, swinging on a 28, that's real scary.
Yeah, he can hit pretty hard, and he's relatively durable in return. Like, arm 4-2 wound is respectable for sure.
Yeah, he's on the lower side of damage just with armor or Phys 13. He's hitting on damage 14, but with the continuous damage and DA, it's like you just got to get one through, and then they're having sometimes a really bad day. So yeah, no, he is epically awesome.
Yeah, Mendoza's a cool unit. I almost never see him, but I don't really see a lot of military orders, to be honest, and I don't see him as being a common pick in vanilla Pano, which I also very rarely see.
yeah, I've just had Mendoza go on a berserk streak, so that's why he scarred me forever of just seeing that happen. So yeah, he's definitely a top pick of a berserk model that's just absolutely terrifying.
All the fire, all the time.
Yep.
I need a flamethrower when you can just berserk continuous damage across the
He
board.
is the flamethrower.
That's right. Yeah, I still don't think continuous damage and AP should coincide, but they're out there.
He doesn't have it.
Not in CC.
No.
But on the multi rifle or the heavy shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, like that's rough.
And the multi rifle's damage 14, but that heavy shotgun, I mean, that's a damage 15 continuous damage AP round.
It's got some punch.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's an ouch time.
Or the fact that it's a damage 15 light flamethrower.
Yeah.
Right?
Burst 2.
With extra burst, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, no, there's more.
Ugh.
Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of torn. Like, I feel like the model that I am more likely to run is different than the model that I think is generally like interesting, but I don't bring him very often. So I'm going to say, because it's the one I'm more likely to run, Den McConnelly. But honorable mention to Wolfie McWolferson, the Wolf, Wolfgang Amadeus Wolf. Because he's just a really interesting profile to me. I like that he combines some CC prowess and some interesting movement and, decent gunfighting.
I'm just curious, are we making like a breakthrough with your problem with mercs?
It's in Tunguska where they hire underground fighters and have them fight for entertainment.
I'll take your justifications, but I'm hearing there's been progress made with your issue.
I mean, I feel it. I feel it justified in my Space Mafia.
That's
don't
fair.
feel it justified in my, off the books Black Ops, anti-AI A-Lift task force. Different story. But yeah, so Den McConnelly, obviously he's very good. For 12 points to get a regular Zellenkrieger that gains martial arts 1 and is 6'2" move. Pretty relevant. He's also got the extra fizz that you normally don't get. And he's got metachemistry to do some crazy stuff. He's got multi-burst chain rifle, multi-burst heavy pistol, which is pretty notable for being able to win those close combat engagements. So he can do a charge berserk with a burst 2 coming at you, and he can't miss. Being a CC 23 base, he's got Natural Born Warrior to make it so he's a little less likely to take crits from enemy CC specialists. And yeah, sometimes he can just go off. Like I said, the metachemistry chart, there's basically nothing bad on it. I feel like the only thing that I ever see that I don't really want compared to other options is BTS +6. But otherwise, I mean, he's also got reroll. So, you've got pretty good odds of getting something different anyway. But if he gets, 8-4 climbing plus, where he can also charge up buildings and he can be a baby bear, or, if he's got something that gives him some extra durability, like actually the +3 fizz and regen was fantastic on him because he just keeps getting back up because he's rolling on 17s. And
Yeah, that's annoying.
And coincidentally, he can't fail normal smoke throws in range unless other circumstances are applying.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Yeah. I like him a lot in Tunguska. He makes his way into the majority of my lists because I don't have to compromise with an irregular order, and it's a 3-point jump from a standard Zellenkrieger. I didn't realize he could join fire teams and other sectorials, but that seems silly. But yeah, I'd say Denma is somebody who definitely falls into the category of he can punch well above his weight class. APDA close combat weapon at damage 14 is pretty solid. Or again, if you just really want to win the face-to-face and get the extra burst off the heavy pistol, he's a force to be reckoned with in CC. Luckily, otherwise, he's just a generic warband with chain rifle and smoke. But in CC, he can do some cool stuff.
I hate him more than I hate Bears because he's in so many different armies now. So he's just been
a handful,
for so long since he came out. So I absolutely hate him because he just wrecks face every single time I play against him. So
yeah, he's got some beef. He does cool stuff. Now, luckily, he's usually pretty fragile. Like he's armor 1 wound. No extra durability beyond that. Like again, he might roll up like total immunity dogged or no wound in cap or regeneration from his metachemistry roll, but generally speaking, he's fairly soft, which helps rein him in a little bit. But yeah, he can do some work. But yeah, I think that it's a fun round. Again, maybe some other time we'll talk about Mr. Wolf. As cool as he is, but not this time. And I think we are just about ready to kind of move over to final thoughts. But before we get to our closing remarks, I want to give a shout out to all of our patrons and say thank you for the support that you give the show. We all greatly appreciate it here. It certainly helps cut costs that otherwise come out of our pocket. And as always, anything that comes into the show stays into show use. Like this doesn't pay us or anything like that. It all stays here. So hopefully, we continue to give you all good content to listen to that you enjoy. And if you're looking to support us in that way, then you can find us on patreon.com/metachemistry. And we give some benefits in return as a show of gratitude for those patrons. So you can get early access to our episodes. So we're on an every other week release cycle. So you can get those a week early and be on the off week, I guess, to get those. We also have some special sections of our Discord that are patron only. Otherwise, the Discord is freely available to everyone, but there are some private channels for people to chat on. And yeah, speaking of the Discord itself, we'd love to have you there and talk more Infinity. You can reach out to any of us on the show if you have suggestions, comments, criticisms, whatever the case may be. we'd love to chat with you there on our Metachemistry Discord, which you can find in our show notes if you're looking for an invite there. And also, if you just want to generally talk shop about Infinity, you can find tactics and painting and terrain and all kinds of good stuff there. And as we mentioned at the top, you're also entered in to win a $40 coupon code to Mo Games. So just another reason to hang out. But with that said, Trevor, Ian, any final thoughts, any closing remarks, any last nuggets of wisdom on Berserk? Ian.
Yeah, it's an interesting skill. It's a little bit weird just because it by denying a face-to-face, it creates some kind of weird situations, like dodge doesn't do anything effectively. So so things like that. It does create situations that kind of break some of the basic flow of how Infinity works. So thankfully, it's on. Well, every faction has access to it, and to some degree, it's on overall relatively few units across the game. And just something to be aware of. It can be a great tool, but it could also really ruin your day if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Trevor?
Yeah, I would say that it's one of those weird skills that, like, once you kind of practice it, get used to it, kind of learn how you can successfully use it, it'll do a lot of work for you. You'll be able to learn how to take out units, like Ian said. So I think it's just an interesting skill that I need to play more. I need to play better. So I would say practice with it and you'll become absolutely terrifying. So
yeah, I think that one of the interesting things about Berserk is it's kind of the epitome, or kind of the final conclusion of peace trading. It's one of those things where, especially, I find that newer or less experienced players, generally speaking, are less inclined to give up their models, even if they would gain a benefit by doing so. Like, they would end up ahead on that trade. And Berserk is kind of, like I said, the ultimate conclusion of doing that. It's like you are just giving up any possibility of defending yourself in order to try and get rid of an enemy trooper. And I think that's really interesting, and I think that's part of why Berserk is probably a little bit less used by a lot of players, is because, well, if I can make this a face-to-face, I might keep my model and kill their model. But just as easily as that's the case, the reverse could happen. You lose the face-to-face, you lose your model, and they're still standing. So yeah, I think that it is an interesting way to kind of teach that lesson of sometimes, it's worth trading a piece away. And sure, it's easy to say on those really cheap Galwegian type units, where of course I would trade a 6-point model for a 30-point model or what have you. But even on more expensive units, knowing that there's a good chance that they'll die, sometimes it's worth it. Even if you're not necessarily trading up in points, you might be trading up tactically or in positioning or opening up certain lanes for the rest of your troops or things like that. So I think that that's kind of an interesting way to sort of force that lesson in a way. But yeah, like I said earlier, I'm glad that Berserk is in the game, but I wouldn't want a lot more of Berserk-like skills. Like if there was a ranged skill that did something similar, I think I would hate it.
makes
Like
sense.
it would just, like, this is not Infinity anymore.
Yeah, this takes enough kind of setup in many cases to pull off that at least it's not just automatic like a ranged attack would be.
Yeah.
And mostly burst one.
Exactly. Yeah, generally speaking. So yeah, well, hopefully you got some interesting information about this semi-limited CC skill in the game and enjoyed our analysis thereof. And we hope to have you back for our next episode. But Until then, I've been Devin.
Trevor.
And Ian, and that's the meta.